Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to be doing another missing character video, mostly because you guys seem to really enjoy the Chaos Edition one and I want to look towards the Empire now. Now, I'm not going to be doing the usual thing with the Empire, which is just going elector count, elector count, elector count. This is a video which is going to focus on loads of different types of characters, as, yeah, some of them are really cool. There's a lot of badasses in this franchise that really don't get enough attention. So with all that being said, let's just jump right in and talk about some really cool characters. And we're going to start off strong with Elsaf Vondraken. This is a character that we mentioned in the Chaos Edition video, and yeah, we need to go into some context with her, right? So she was introduced in the Tamukon series. She's known as the Dark Lady of Null, and also she is the Magistrix of the Amethyst Order. So she is a very powerful wizard. Now, she's not an Elector Count, however she kinda steps in because the Elector Count of Wissenland is, well, let's just say lazy. More so self-serving than anything else, so Elsaf takes matters into her own hands because there's a massive chaos invasion on the way, and if nothing gets done, well, the whole empire, possibly the whole world, will fall. So what makes Elsaf so different to, say, for example, Balthazar, who's another wizard in his own right, you know? Well, Elsaf rides atop of a Carmine Dragon, an absolutely monolithic creature, as you can see on the model in the video. Now, she's also been around for a few generations, and she doesn't look like she's aged. The thing is, many speculate that she might be something else entirely other than human. Many people seem to think she could be a sort of vampire, or hell, maybe something else, you don't know. A little spoiler alert here if you haven't read into her lore, but her character actually dies during the Tamukon series and then comes back. Young and untouched, despite the fact that she basically melted away into nothingness. So this is something really weird, as a few years later, you know, she just returns, and it's very strange because stuff like this isn't really common. Some characters are able to do this, like, say, for example, Nagash, who after being killed can come back, but we don't really see this happen too often with what could be mortals, you know? Now, the lore does suggest that she does form part of the Lemurian bloodline, but no vampires, as far as I know, barring Vlad with his ring, have been able to reform after death. And we don't know exactly as to where this kind of stands, really. But one thing is actually quite certain. Despite the fact that she is quite dark in nature, she does think about the Empire. She actually is a good guy. Yeah, I know, it sounds weird, doesn't it? And yes, we have had good guy vampires or even weird entities, but yeah, she genuinely cares about the Empire. In fact, some people do believe that she should be running Wissenland instead of Countess Emmanuel, which, yeah, you know, kind of does make a lot of sense. Now, this character is almost certain to be added in, like I said in the last video, as if Tamukon comes in and Elsaf is not his rival, it will be a massive missed opportunity considering that the book is amazing, right? If you haven't read through the Tamukon book, you can find a PDF online, I think. If you're trying to find a hard copy, it's going to be like £200. Yeah, they're that rare, but it is one of the best supplements that Games Workshop have ever released. I play that campaign every so often with friends because it's that good. It's got such great theming, the story is fantastic. It's one of those things that makes you really angry that Games Workshop kind of shelved the project because there were supposed to be 3 other books focusing around the other Chaos Gods and stuff, but yeah. It's a bit of a shame. But I'd love to see her, and she's got so many options for legendary heroes like Jubal Falk, obviously Theodore Bruckner, which could be considered her biggest simp, who's also got a really cool demigryph mount. And this would be the perfect time to start implementing some missing units like Ironsides as proper units, you know, the Marienburg Landship, you know, just some stuff which would just kind of add a little bit more flavor. Null is very focused on gunpowder, right? There's a gunnery school there. So we'd expect this to be loads of gunpowder in a form of the DLC versus Tamukon Nurgle, which would be very durable. So, you know, it'd be the unstoppable force because, you know, gunpowder is very strong versus the immovable object. Plus, this would be a kind of good reason to bring in dragons for the Empire because it's kind of weird that we don't have dragons yet, you know? They actually form a little bit of part in the lore like the Imperial Dragon and stuff, and yeah, nothing. Next we're going to talk about Marius Lightdorf, because if you think I'm going to do an Empire video and not talk about him, you are very wrong. This will likely be our only elect account, but it's just kind of important. I love this character. I mean, his model is freaking cool, and that's usually a big thing. But if we get into some basic lore, so he's known as the Mad Count of Avalon. The dude is batshit insane. That's the best way of explaining it, but he's a good guy. So, what makes him insane? Well, he has terrible visions. The dude sees stuff that really isn't there. There's a little bit of Tzeentchian corruption there. Hell, he really hates the halflings too, but it's something that Avalanders are kind of known for. Hell, the dude's even going as far as declare war on inanimate objects, because that's a perfectly normal thing to do. Even lords at court kind of keep an eye on him, not because he's crazy, but because he'll try to sleep with their women. He's very out there, he's very flamboyant, dude dresses really extravagantly, and yeah, you know, he's just one of those dudes, you know, when you see those rich people who are just like out there and just kind of insane. And the dude just pulls no punches, right? Like, he even insults Kurt Helborg by saying he has a poor mustache and even worse dental hygiene and horrible sense of humor to rival a troll. I mean, it's kind of Warhammer insulty, but it's a good insult, right? So I know this doesn't actually sound that interesting, but then we're going to talk about why the character is so cool, right? Not only does his personality kind of make him out there, but he's known to be an incredible fighter. Like, one of the best the Empire has ever had. He demands a lot of respect, and a lot of other warriors, even that of Karl Franz, respect his ability. Marius is unfortunately dead in the lore, seeing as he had passed away in the Battle of Blackfire Pass, one of the many times that the Greenskins have invaded through that area. He basically heroically sacrifices himself. The dude just went there for the love of the Empire, and fought as hard as he could. Even Karl Franz mourns his death because he lost a trusted friend and a very powerful ally. But let's talk about him being dead. So it doesn't really matter if he's dead or not, because there's a lot of characters in the lore which are dead and yet still feature in Total War Warhammer, so I feel like it's really not going to be an issue to add him in. Now, there's been rumors about a supplement planned for the Battle of Blackfire Pass. I think it was actually confirmed by XGW members. This was before the end times, of course. Unfortunately, never got released. But there was talk about this featuring Marius quite heavily, all the way up to his death. Kind of like one of those scenarios where you could see if he lives or dies, in a sense. And that would have probably had some new Empire units. So he could come alongside that in that, you know? An Empire versus Greenskin pack, which is something that we should see in the future, as I'm very much hoping that Creative Assembly have learnt that cross-game DLC is good, but it could also be done a little bit better, so see some DLC which is like, say, Game 1 versus Game 1, or Game 2 versus Game 1, rather than going Game 3 versus Game 1 or Game 2. You get what I mean here? And hey, if Games Workshop do allow the old supplements, which were pretty much written and just shelved, why not, right? It would be a great idea. I imagine that Marius will come eventually. I don't know if he'll come as the DLC, though. Maybe as an FLC character. But he's a character that's just super cool looking. He's a fencer, too, so he fights with a sword and a blade. He doesn't really use a shield. And it would just be nice to eventually get all the other elect accounts. I'm going to make it very clear here. I would love to see all the elect accounts playable in the future. And I think a lot of people would, because you've all got your favorite Imperial provinces, let's be honest. Plus, there's so many missing characters that if I wanted to do everything missing or every character missing, we'd be here for like hours. So we're going to move on to Kurt Helborg, and by the way, if you haven't guessed, this video isn't on the most important characters, it's just the ones that I find really, really cool. Now, Kurt Helborg is freaking awesome, right? So, he is the Reichsmarschall. He is the Grand Marshal of the Reichsguard. He is someone who has been fighting for the Empire for many, many years, and he has a really cool mustache to prove it. Dude's got amazing titles like Hand of Vengeance, the Emperor's Chosen Kriegmeister, and the Hammer of Chaos. And this is because he is always front and center when he is needed. Not only will he fight alongside his Reichsguard knights, but yeah, anywhere he needs to go. If the threat is there and the Emperor commands it, he will be there. He's been able to fight against pretty much anything. He's been to Kislev, he's been to Araby, he's been pretty much anywhere he was needed, and this is a character I really like because he is fiercely loyal. The dude doesn't really think about himself as much. Like, he will happily lay his life on the line if it meant that their army would win, right? If it meant that his forces would become victorious. But this guy just wants to protect the Empire. He wants to serve his Emperor. And, you know, it's very rare to see a good character like that, especially in the Warhammer setting where everyone is just kind of morally grey. Like even Marius, who I spoke about before, he has a few self-serving intentions too. But this character just seems to be there. Hell, the dude is so well known that he's even got the Solon the Runefang, something that is normally there for just elect accounts. Mind you, Solon has been destroyed, but yeah, he has it. The model looks freaking awesome, and yeah, I mean, he would likely be a legendary hero. I would love it if it was like the mods kind of have at the moment, where we could have a legendary hero that could also become a legendary lord at a toggle, so you could use him to lead the Reichsguard if needed, but also support Karl Franz and have some buffs if he's supporting Karl Franz. Kind of like a Skaven Chieftain in a sense, you know, with those types of abilities. And I think that would just be kind of cool. I think that the whole having a legendary hero that can also become a legendary lord thing would be kind of awesome, as they wouldn't have their own star position. It wouldn't make any sense. He should really be an Altdorf. But it would be kind of cool if Karl Franz had access to him. You went to a kind of convoluted quest sign or whatever, you know, with a big final battle, and then he rides in. And yeah, then you can use him however you want. If you want to use him as a lord, you can. If you want to use him as a hero, you can. Plus, he's a cool model, and, you know, cool models kind of trump anything else. I love a lot of these Empire characters. I think that they're really, really cool. We need to see more. The Empire's really gotten ignored over the years, which is weird, considering that they were the very first faction that was showcased, weren't they? Well, either way, they were one of the very first factions in-game as playable, so yeah. Next, we're going to move on to Emil Valgir, the High Priest of Ulrich, which, yes, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh god, this is just Ulrichian version of Volkmar the Grim, and I guess, yeah, you can kind of think of it that way, but the thing is, religion in Warhammer is a massive thing, right? All the churches are so drastically different, their units could be different too, and this is the big thing, which we haven't really seen in Total War Warhammer just yet. It's kind of disappointing, really, where everyone feels like a Sigmarite, and that's not the case. The Northerners kind of worship Ulrich a lot. The ones in the center kind of focus around Tal. There's others which will focus around Sigmar. Just because Sigmar is the head of the Pantheon, depending where you're from, by the way, doesn't mean that he's the head of everyone, right? Emil is a strong fighter. His faith is obviously very much what gives him his strength, and it's just a really cool character. He would be very much like a warrior priest. Again, very similar to that of Volkmar, but focusing on some different types of blessings. These are stuff that we've discussed in the past, as Ulrich has different blessings to Sigmar, which, you know, surprise, surprise, different gods. You know, we're already expecting Boris Todbringer eventually, so why not an Ulrichian-themed DLC, which will be with Emil too, because, well, we're not going to pay for Boris, he's already in-game, right? Think about all the missing Ulrichian units, the Knights of the White Wolf, hell, even some dog units. If you go back to the Storm of Chaos, there's a massive list of missing Ulrichian-themed units, which would fit really well here. And the character wasn't really lost in the Storm of Chaos. He even features during the end times too, because, well, Middenheim and Midland in general is a big area, especially with a lot of plot points. It doesn't make sense because it's the end times, but at least the Ulrichians do get some time to shine, right? Plus, again, cool model, right? It's a very angry Santa Claus with a giant battle axe. What do you not like about that? Which, I know some people would say, well, they're going to be very similar to that of the Patriarchs. I don't know. I wouldn't say they would be too similar, but they'd have some similar themes because human nations do kind of overlap and they're very close to each other, so yeah, you can imagine that. Plus, there's always been that whole thing about Ulrich and Ursus being kind of linked in a sense, but that was just like really weird lore from like 4th edition maybe? Was it 4th? Anyways, let's move on. And lastly, we have Hisme Stoutheart. Yeah, a halfling. Like it or not, the halflings are part of the Empire. They do have an electoral seat. They can vote on the next emperor, and it would be kind of cool if we had a mini race, sub-race type of thing for the halflings in the Empire, as we've already seen that possible with the Champions of Chaos DLC, and, you know, It would just be nice to have the meme there. Have all the Empire factions being able to recruit halflings, but then have a halfling dedicated faction, which is mostly playing with just halflings, because I think that would be kind of cool. Now, Hisme is a pretty interesting character. There's not a lot of lore. We don't know if Hisme is male or female, by the way, because all the lore says male, some other lore says female. It's one of these things where consistency with GW is kind of lost, right? And this is a character which is actually well tied to the history of Karl Franz. Originally, believe it or not, Hisme actually voted for Boris Todbringer, but eventually the mind was changed because a series of events. This was all after the Halfling Rebellion, by the way, which got suppressed by Marius Lightdorf. It's a weird time. The Halflings were never really treated too well. Keep in mind that the Halflings were kind of forced to kind of serve in armies. This was during the whole Vampire Wars, and then from there, it's like a really weird relationship, but still the halflings can actually get some respect. This is because during the Storm of Chaos, halflings were sent by Hisme to join the Empire as they needed scouts and skirmishers, and usually those are the best. I mean, if you've seen The Hobbit, then you pretty much know what I mean. And yeah, it's kind of like that, right? Like, there's not a lot of lore for this character, which I feel is probably the best thing that could actually happen for Hisme, because if this character does get added in, Creative Assembly might have some leeway to be able to flesh out Hisme a little bit with one of the short stories that they normally do. You guys might not be aware of this, but if you go into your Total War Access, there are some short stories which give you some context. There's one to give you a backstory on Lady Diaphyn, and hell, there's even a book on the Godslayer, like a prequel to the actual prequel campaign. So this would be kind of cool to have a story on the Halflings, just to kind of hype things up as a free ebook. I just really want Halflings. I know it's a stretch, but it would be kind of cool, and they would need a legendary lord. I wouldn't like Halflings being introduced as just a unit. They need to have a legendary lord, their own start in the moot, and yeah, just a little bit of a different thing, a completely different campaign, because those types of things we've seen with Champion of Chaos. Once again, I keep referencing that DLC a lot now because it's become my favorite format. It literally brings new life to one specific faction and adds in so much replayability. So if that's done with Halflings, yeah, you'd get loads of new units, and then you'd have a new campaign to play too. It'd give you loads of reason to play both campaigns, right? You could play a normal Empire one and then go for a full Halfling one. I know, Hisme is not really an awesome character, but I wanted to talk about Hisme, so we're going to talk about one more. Consider it a fake out or a happy extra. So, Walton. I mean, it's going to be a character that has to be mentioned, because I know if I don't mention Walton, I'm going to get comments going, where's Walton, was Walton, was Walton, was Walton. This is a pretty interesting character because he is pure plot armor until the very end. Yeah, this is pretty much how I can explain Walton. This is the thing, right? So he's the son of a blacksmith, then he's learning from his father, the beastmen arrive, he's got a weird birthmark because apparently that's how you tell if anyone's destined for greatness or chaos. This is a typical thing in Warhammer, by the way. It's a birthmark. It's usually a birthmark. The beastmen come, and then young Walton, who is just pretty much a young adult, decides to pick up two hammers and beat the living shit out of the Beast Lord, killing him, and everyone just hails him as the Sigmar Reborn, which, I mean, we've seen other characters take down far larger creatures, and they're like, oh yeah, no, you're just a Hunts Marshal, but now you killed a Gaul. You can be Sigmar Reborn. But as much as I am taking the piss, right, Walton is kind of cool, right? The Church of Sigmar is keeping an eye on him because they see him as a pretender, which, you know, fair enough, I would too. He does show up a lot during the end times, and he does show up a lot during the Storm of Chaos. He's had a few awesome models which just make him look absolutely badass, and he's a melee fighter, which I know a lot of people wouldn't be too keen on, but I don't know, Walton seems to be very popular with the fan base. I kind of just point aside from him because he just kind of feels like a Matt Ward character, if that makes sense. Very Mary Sue, but yeah, like he does badass things, right? He fights front and center, he'll happily be at the front line if he so needs. Hell, during the end times, he kills, he kills Kron the Conqueror, he kills Wulfric, he kills a few other characters. Like, this guy is built to do damage, so I guess that's why he's so popular. Yeah, he's pretty cool, I must say. If I'm going from a story perspective, I don't really like him because I don't like the Mary Sues. However, if I'm looking at the miniatures, I'm thinking, really, I would love to see that in Total War because he looks freaking awesome. It would be kind of nice if you saw, like, all three of his different armor sets in the game, so you could unlock them as skill points, kind of like you would do with mount options. might be fun? I don't know. There's a lot of missing Empire characters. These are just the ones that kind of strike out to me the most, and there's just loads and loads more. Like I said, if I wanted to do every single missing character in a video, we'd be here for hours and hours. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about these characters. Let me know what you guys want, because there's loads of characters, like I said. Which ones are you specifically hoping for in the future of Total War Warhammer 3? Yes, we're kind of in a bit of a drought right now, but I feel like we'll probably see something in the future, right? We'll see more DLC. I have faith that they'll want to milk this as much as possible. I know Games Workshop would like to do that too, and we want more DLC. We want to play this. We want to see our favorite characters in here. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.